Hello, so I'm here today with Katharina Zuleger, who's a very, very good friend and colleague of mine. We've known each other for years now. Hi, Katharina. Katharina and I are going to be talking today about creativity, which is my absolute passion in life. It's the thing which runs through all of my work, everything that gets me excited. And it made me realize just recently that I really want to find out how we actually get in tune with our own creative process, what it is that really makes us work. And so I wanted to do interviews with some people who I know have skill in this area and skill in ways that we would normally think about it, and also in terms of how they manage themselves. And Katerina is a wonderful example of this. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Katerina. Her career has been varied. She has had a successful business with interior design. It's a bit more than that, but perhaps she'll say a little bit about it. Fashion design, had a clothing label, and has been working for many years as a business coach and is now in a period of transition. So, Katerina, welcome.
Hi,
Thanks for being
Simon.
here. Hi, hi, hi. So, I think the first thing I'd like to ask you really is to think of a time when you felt your most creative, whatever that might be. It might be a moment, it might be a period. Um, and if you could let us know a little bit about that.
hmm Um, Interesting question because I think there's like different facets of success.
Right.
One facet is in terms of like inner abundance and excitement and aliveness and bliss and wonder and like can't not wanting to jump out of the bed in the morning to go and create. And the other one is like success in terms of finances.
Yeah.
Um, so there's like two probably two facets, but so when I was building building houses, doing feng shui, interior design, like these two things came together. I was like Monday morning 7 o'clock was a wonderful moment in I was like so happy to jump out of the bed and like the experience to imagine something and to put it on paper and wrestle with it, like, where should this wall be? Or what color will it be? Or where's the kitchen? And what will the garden look like? Until it finally kind of falls into a place where my body says, ha, that's it. This is the best I can give. Maybe I might think about it differently in 10 years, but for the moment, this feels like the best version my body kind of melts a bit and expands, and then to see it actually three-dimensional in the landscape. So the process in itself was very amazing, was also very scary sometimes, especially in the beginning. Like I didn't dare to look at the first houses. I
Really?
remember like they were ready, and I was like, I can't, I cannot go there. I was so scared. Um, but so this was like a period of like really physically seeing things and earning good money with it. Like these things came together, and I loved it. Um, and I, when I look at my life, I'd say that like the excitement, or whenever I was financially successful, um, it was usually aligned with this expansive, joyful, creative feeling. There was another time where I felt like successful, like more on a spiritual, creative level, when
Oh,
I painted Sufi poems.
oh,
I'm painting like for forever, and when I discovered Hafiz and Rumi, I I painted these things on canvases. Like when I look at these paintings now, they're like some of them are nice, some of them like what? But I was such an ecstatic. time. Like I felt like sometimes for weeks, like really high, like complete and
Wow.
utterly high, like no drugs, nothing. But I was really high on maybe on this cooperation, like with this mystic, who was like the Sufi poems are very ecstatic
Yeah.
quite often. So it was like somebody like holding my hand and say, jump, be wild, be free, don't give a whatever. Yeah. And that wasn't financially successful, but like in terms of my inner experience,
Yeah.
it feels like, or from a personal development, it feels like a successful time.
Wow. Such a great example. What, I mean, maybe I don't know how easy it will be to do this. I heard you say one thing with the building that you'd feel it in your body.
Hmm.
You'd feel something in your body, which I was very interested to hear you say that. So there's a kind of alignment to something there, internal,
Hmm.
which allows you to sort of move more into that space. But I'm also wondering what would you say are the things that really contributed to those times being so successful in this way, in this creative way?
Hmm.
It may not be possible, but just looking at
Yeah,
it
let me
now,
just
what
give me,
comes?
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, the way I see it, I grew up in a very uncreative, restricted, narcissistic, limited environment.
right.
So art, creativity, music was like completely out of question. And for me, I think every act of creativity is like the middle finger to my history. It's like, fuck you all. I do what makes me happy. It's sometimes like my kind of rebellion and revolution to claim my voice.
Wow.
And I think when I look at like as you said, like my life and my career has been very varied or all over the place, and sometimes it's like, how does these things go together? But I think the red thread for all for many things I did are related to claiming my voice and
Wow.
healing
Yeah.
this expression. So it's nothing I was born with. Like it's not that it was nurtured, the complete opposite. Sometimes when I hear about artists and say, "Oh, my parents were so supportive and everybody was clapping," like my upbringing was the complete opposite. Like it was mocked and shamed and everything around expressing myself. So um, even though I think, like in terms of painting, that I'm not like I'm dreadful at painting figures and perspectives, la la. Um, so I'm not like I wouldn't say that I'm like hugely talented in terms of
Yeah.
drawing, for example. But I feel there was actually no other option in my life than to fill this huge gap, you know,
Yeah.
to fill this hunger. Like it's a trail I needed to follow in order to stay alive.
I it's what's coming to mind for me is it's like staking a claim for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like it's like having to really do something strongly in the direction of I'm going to create my vision, my space, and actually almost using that challenge as the kind of thing to bounce off of.
The
To
fuel.
actually,
Yeah.
wow, that's fascinating. And you did speak to a way which may work for other people is that they've had the support,
Hmm.
which may be a different way. Right, that's really fascinating.
But I think that the stuff we follow, I mean, maybe you are like a super talent like Mozart or whatever, Beethoven. Maybe they need to follow this because it's so strong, and maybe they've
Yep.
built it over millions of incarnations. But I think very often we follow like the missing links. in order to become whole again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's certainly my path.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So it's like missing links is quite it's almost it's a beautiful image because it's almost like where the gaps are, I try and work something out, and that actually leads me into this creative path. And in a way, this is kind of a wonderful segue to the other bit because uh, it's not just about the success. And in a way, you've spoken about one aspect of what I'm going to be offering you now to speak about a bit, which is when things get tough, when there's a difficult time. And what can happen is that we can really struggle. And out of that struggle, something can really beautiful can happen. And so you've spoken about your upbringing. I'm wondering if there's another area where things haven't gone to plan, where things have really not worked well for you. You're laughing.
Yeah. Keep going.
No, no, no. So I mean, it's something I know very well for myself. Struggle because what just quickly to revert to myself, what I've noticed with some of the biggest challenges in my life is that when I have really gone for them as learning experiences, something rather amazing comes out of it. And I think the subjective experience when we're in it can be very, very hard. And so it's part of the purpose of why I want to do these things is that if a person's having a really hard time, okay, it's terrible and we need support and we need to do all these things. And what else may be possible? So that's really the direction. So could there be perhaps one or maybe two areas where things have been a bit tough?
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it before that I had like a fashion label.
Yes.
Everybody who knew me was like, what are you thinking? I mean, like, I was, and probably still am the least fashionable person on this planet, but it was something I wanted to claim. Like, it was a territory I wanted to explore. So usually the way I explore stuff is quite often I make a business out of it or a project or, so went all in. But this time, like, I really uh I was complete like I lost a lot of money, I wasted a lot of money. And the reason why it was not successful and why it was really hard was because David Bowie says, like, don't create for the gallery, you know,
Yeah.
like, don't create for your clients, don't create for the applause. And I was in rescue mode, which is a big trap for me. Like with my family, I was very often in rescue mode. So I had this idea of creating like a big imperium and making like uh, um, clothes that are unique to different body types,
Ah,
like have
that's the rescue, is it?
that's the rescue, yeah. And I mean, I looked like for ages Gok Wan and Trini and Susanna and all these like body shape stuff. It helped me a lot to understand my body and understand that I'm not alone in my struggle to feel beautiful. But to create like clothes with the idea to heal other people, and it was completely crazy because what I didn't know then that people don't want to be saved, you know. um and it lacked like what is like truly exciting for me. So
Oh,
I wasn't in this mode like of rumi poems or planning a garden or something, and it's like, oh yes, how can I make it successful for other people? And if I think I still could do a fashion label probably
yeah.
successfully, but then I
Yeah,
need to be more true to myself. Like
yeah.
create jeans and t-shirt or like some crazy embroidered um world fashion fantasy stuff, whatever. So it needs to be really close to me. It needs to be healing for myself first. This is the way I work.
Yeah.
Maybe I think other people are different. They can I don't know how Alexander McQueen felt. I mean, like when he creates a dress for a woman, it's not, he wouldn't wear it himself, I guess. Um, so I think other people might function differently, but like this is my sacred first commandment: create for your own excitement, growth, pleasure, challenge, for your own healing.
I mean, listening to you, the energy of that feels very, very different. I mean, could that first fashion idea have been not with you perhaps, but could it be fueled by that energy? Do you think? Could it have been fueled in that way? Because I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say. Let me try and say it differently. What is it about rescuing? What is it about that rescuing energy which is so different? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
getting at?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. For
how does
me,
that? Yeah, for you,
yeah, for me, rescue comes from a place of obedience.
right?
Like this is a deep pattern. I tried to rescue my family, um, but rescue was also related to being obedient to the playbook of my family.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
what can be expressed, what is allowed, how what is too much,
yeah,
can I trust my own perception? So when and rescue was the idea like, oh, if I can save them, maybe then I have the right to be happy and create what I really want. And this is not going to work. This is like not the cosmic game. I need to play. I need to play. Fuck the obedience. What is it? What makes me happy at the moment? What is aligned to the wisdom of my body? What makes me expand? What is my edge?
yeah. So with that sort of that failed label, the are there things that you've understood or
Hmm.
learned as a result of that particular crash, if you
Don't
see what
create for the gallery.
that's it. That's the
That's it.
essence of it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Don't create for the gallery. And yet, if you go to anything around marketing and they'll say, do your market research, find out
Hmm.
what people want. How does it fit with that? Just curious about this.
Oh, complete in alignment
Tell me.
because I did make a market research,
Yep.
but not, I didn't understand the key questions, because I understood. I asked like women, what is it what you want, like plus size women,
Yep.
what is it what you want to wear? And but it's a completely different question to ask, what are you willing to invest in, and how much money are you willing to pay? Because in this time I realized, oh my god, um, as long as women hate their bodies, anything that is not cheap fashion, um, they won't go for it because it's an act of self-love, and they're like constantly, oh, I need to lose weight and I hate my body so much, so I can't buy sustainable, ecological, beautiful clothes because I'm telling my body, you are okay as you are, even if you're fat. So that didn't work. So my market research was, even that wasn't on
Respond. Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that. Wow. Don't play to the gallery. Thank you for that. That's so easy to remember.
David Bowie,
David Bowie, yeah.
he's
Uh,
such a good leader in terms of creative
yeah.
freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one which I love from him, and I'm paraphrasing, is if you're feeling comfortable, you're
You're
not
in the
in,
wrong place.
you're not in the creative place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I definitely think there's some truth to that. So what I'd like to ask you now, don't answer if it doesn't feel right to today, but I think, sometimes when we talk about creativity, we do it in a way which is very much looking at the things which have already been tidied up, already been finished, already been sorted. So I'd like to ask you, and again, pick something which is fine for you, or we don't have to do it if not, something which is current. which is a current challenge that you're in the midst of, because this, I feel, is the place where we have the most opportunity with the stuff that's actually going on in our lives, the mess which is over here and the problem which is over there. If we can find a way to engage with them creatively, you're laughing again.
You said mess, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that there is no 360-degree camera because, because it's so full of paint and frames. And see next to me, like my drilling things.
Aha.
Um, yeah.
Well, I
So,
mean, I mean, but look, the thing is that you are in, I mean, this is an example. We'll come back to the question I just asked you, but like you actually have to have a mess quite often in order
mhm,
to make
yeah.
something. You're practically you're painting at the moment, doing a lot of painting. So you've got all your gear around. It's a mess. Have you ever seen Francis Bacon's studio? There's a wonderful shot of his artist's studio. I think that's who it is. I think I may have got the name wrong, but I think that's who it is. It's just this wonderful picture. He's probably got it wrong. His studio is just awash with empty paint tubes, just like all over the floor, and it's just chaos.
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So back to the question.
currently,
Something current,
current
yeah.
battles. Yeah, I feel like I'm in a huge transformational period.
Yeah,
I was seriously sick um, 2, 3 years ago. I didn't expect to, like, one part is like, oh, I'm still here. Like, I didn't expect to survive.
yeah.
And it brought up a whole new range of questions, like, what has the power and the depth and the truth and the beauty to make me want to stay here? And it kind of led to a crash of my coaching business. Um, Even though um, I feel I had a lot of beauty, you know, um, definitely from the intention and from the healing side. But so it made me question a lot of the things. It had made me look at my life, my the trauma, the whole obedience thing on a much deeper level, and um, and I feel like kind of almost everything fell down, and I'm in the process of taking things, and it's like, oh, do I want to
Mm.
keep you? Is this how I want to spend the time I have, however long that might be? Do I want to spend my time, my energy, my love with it? And so there's, and it's, I, f- I feel like maybe 20 years ago, that might have killed me, this amount of insecurity and not knowing and instability, and like it's floating on an ice, when pieces of ice are melting and floating around in the ocean.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of uncomfortable quite often. I'm wondering if I should move into full-time painting. I painted a lot. It helped me with staying connected with color, which I deeply love. And what is also difficult with all the dysregulation that happened, that I lost my like free flow, explosive, liberated way to paint. Before I would just start, and I would paint with my fingers, and it was like super messy and painted over it again and again, and I wasn't so bothered. And suddenly, with all the anxiety and dysregulation, I noticed that I started painting a lot like in forms, like shapes. You
Yeah,
don't see because it's blurred.
blurred. Yeah,
So like mandalas and frames and circles, and so there's a lot of shape, and I started judging it, oh,
yeah,
this is so limited, this is so anal retentive, or what's the word? It's like the,
Yep.
oh. And suddenly I realized, oh no, I kind of need the structure at the moment, and it creates like safety and grounding, and to surrender to what I need at the moment, which is like not wild and free. I started playing a little bit with free flow abstracts again, like a couple of days ago, but I couldn't do it like for the last 3 years. It was not possible. And to accept, like, yeah, to learn to accept what helps me. I think what helps me to heal in the moment. I think art and creativity has always been a process of healing for me.
Yeah.
So what helps me to heal in the moment with the way I use creativity.
Yeah. I mean, listening to you is interesting because some of the things which you had perhaps used, that following of that wild and free energy, weren't available to you,
Hmm.
haven't been available to you.
Yeah.
And so there's an adaptation that perhaps has to come sometimes in these difficult moments to, as you put it right at the end, the healing in the moment,
Hmm.
what I might think of as meeting the needs of the moment. Um, what 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 do you feel is, are there things that you feel are supporting you through this, that you're using as resources, particularly?
Supporting through the creative process or through the process
Yeah,
of
through this
healing.
experience that you're going through at the moment, because the the only interest in the creative process is how to further our being as fully present, wholehearted in our lives as we can be, whatever the situation is. So that's really what the aim is. That's healing, I guess.
Mm. I think one of the biggest things for me is to accept my limits. Say, like I feel I need to check out at the moment. I need to
Yeah.
numb, This is a place I can't feel anymore. And I don't put my spiritual superego in charge of, you should meditate, you should feel this, you should write an essay about it. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm I'll allow myself to check out if things are too much.
Yeah.
Um and to have like compassion. I think, like, I mean, I think there's so much creation that comes from the inner critic, and from performance and of obedience and wanting to be somebody of
Yeah.
idolized identities and stuff. So I think for me, it's a process of accepting my limits, my story, my, yeah, whatever is true in the moment. Like to try to not judge myself so much anymore.
It's very kind, isn't it? To
I
actually
try
meet
to,
once. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it really is in that direction. And, you said something which I feel like I've observed in myself and others, is that I can create from a place which is more built out of survival type energy, like the inner critic that you just mentioned. That's a survival energy that's doing that. It's got this kind of to it. And then I can create from another place which has got that expansive quality that you were talking about so much earlier. And I think, to be able to recognize a little bit when one is coming from one place and from the other. And sometimes we need the survival. That's the best we can do
Yeah.
sometimes, that's all we can do. But it really speaks to that for me. And I love the frame of the kindness
Hmm.
as a direction. That
Yeah.
sounds very beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add about that sort of aspect of things?
Yeah. One thing, which I observed like throughout my life, that whenever I felt like insecure and
Yeah.
anxious, I tended to do another training, like to learn
Oh, not
something,
me. No, no. Right. Okay.
like another diploma, another training, another book, another whatever.
Yeah.
And when I look at it, it's like, ah, yeah, like rather than facing like the emptiness of the page or the emptiness of the canvas or the emptiness or the not knowing, like how do I want to build this house or it, I think I'm slowly learning to um, to be much more careful with the intake, you know,
Say more what you mean about the intake,
like
like
books, like
another course or a
training stuff, yeah, guides, workshops, whatever, so I'm much more selective.
interesting. I'm just because there's a very interesting thing for me here because there's the kind of fuck you to the sort of family way, and that was such great fuel. Um, and then there's this desire for teaching and for learning as well, which is so it's just an interesting combination, isn't it? That was
Yeah, and I
part
mean,
of the
I'm not
picture.
against like learning. I'm
No,
I
no, I
like
get that.
in my strength profile, I'm definitely a learner. I love
Yeah,
learning, but it's more about the way, like to to not immediately jump into learning something,
yes,
from somebody else. Like open windows to learn from myself.
yeah, which is such a powerful affirmation of your own
Yeah,
creative impulse, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah. But I mean the stuff I did and the money I spent with this idea that I can learn these things outside is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. This is somebody who's done exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, not to. I've got a lot out of it, and actually,
Mm.
it's very familiar. So, if there were one thing you could say to your younger self, which you think would be helpful to that younger self, what would that be in terms of this creativity and
Don't study after school.
don't study after school? That's
Get your
insane.
hands dirty, you
I
know.
see. Gotcha.
Like don't go to university.
Really?
Yeah, like I was like, I need to have the next frame, like the next container, the next safety system where I can prove myself, like learn, 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 make a PhD. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, no, no. Have the guts to travel after school or paint or work in an orphanage or God knows what. But
Do
like
you mean
do
to follow that kind of that impulse? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it
n-
more getting
it's
into the world in a different way?
getting into the world and getting like into actually touching life and the world and earth and landscapes and people, like don't focus so much on filling the head out of panic,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
theories.
What a wonderful piece of advice. I think do that now.
I mean, I hope for the next incarnation, and it's like,
Oh, right.
hey, next time.
Yeah, that'll be sorted for next time. Ah, Katharina, thank you so much. It's been really, really lovely having this conversation with you. It's so wonderful to be invited into your world and your experiences. Would you like to say a little bit about what you're up to now, and how people can get hold of you? I know you're in transition, but perhaps, I know you've got a couple of things on the back burner, so to speak. There may
Yeah,
be
so
nothing.
there's like I'd say like at least for a year I didn't write any newsletter, I didn't update my website, I was completely out of social media. So there's nothing current at the moment,
Okay.
really. There is a website which is www.katharina-zuleger.com. I think you can type
I'll
it.
add a link.
So,
Yeah.
but don't expect anything from the present moment. And
Well,
we will see who I will become in the next phase.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank
Um,
you, Simon.
it was a real, real pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thank
Really.
you.
All right.